Hello.
Hello, thank you for
Yeah.
Hello.
joining ahead of time.
Hello.
And it's so nice. Our
Hello.
colleagues from Myanmar are here. A very warm welcome. We're glad you can join. Feel free to open your mic and say quickly hello. We will start in a few moments.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hi, Maciej.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, both on separate computers. Hi, Bakhtir, how are you?
Nice, thanks. What about you?
Good so far, yes. Looking forward to being with all of you today in this classroom and seeing you again.
Antonia, I sent you an email. I don't know if you...
I saw
Okay.
that, Maciej. Thanks for the heads up. So
Yeah.
feel free to leave when you have to leave. Obviously, we would love to have you here longer, but if you have to leave, we understand. So if you, we will share the recording after, as you know. So if you can then just maybe have a look at that, that would be great.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for your understanding.
No problem. I think we are missing two colleagues, Lembris, if I'm not mistaken, and Victor is also not here. But I would suggest that we start, and if they join in a moment, my colleague Cesar, who is with me today on the technical facilitation front, he will be able to let them in. A very warm welcome to this first thematic virtual classroom. It's a pleasure that you're here. For those of you who were not able to make it last time, a special warm welcome, and especially to the colleagues in Myanmar. It's great that you have internet connection at the moment and that you can join. For those of you who have not met me in person, my name is Antonia, and as I said, I'm supported today by my colleague Cesar. We both work in the learning and innovation team here at head office. I myself as evaluation and learning advisor, and Cesar is senior advisor in knowledge and learning. And if you have any technical issues or anything you wish to ask also thematically, please just post it in the chat and we will be able to take up those points as we go along. And I am, like I mentioned it already last time, I have construction work in the building next to me, which is why I'm standing at an improvised desk in my living room at the moment. I'm sorry about construction work that may come here and there, but here in this room, you should hear it very little. Just as a quick recap for technical issues, we have muted most of your microphones, and if you could please keep them muted until you speak, because that way we really guarantee the best sound quality for all. As I mentioned, if you have comments or questions throughout the classroom, feel free to just post them in the chat. And there will also be plenty of time for exchange. So there you can also just raise your points verbally. Some of you have your camera open. If your connection allows, please keep it that way. It would be great to see you. If you have connection issues, you are welcome to keep it closed, but when you speak, please open it so we can see your faces. Should you have trouble hearing or seeing, or there is something that cuts, we really recommend that you close Zoom, you close all other programs, and that you rejoin via this link. Cesar will let you back in. And Cesar has also started recording. As last time, these virtual classrooms are available to you afterwards. So what is awaiting us today? Let me just rearrange your videos here. So we will have a quick check-in how module 1 was for you, how you liked the content, what you learned, what you liked in particular. We will have one part. I'm aware that the things that are covered in module 1, like situational analysis, impact hypotheses, results chains, the log frame, they can be confusing sometimes. And I just wanted to go a bit deeper there to clarify regarding the content of module number 1. Then part of this module was that you get together in groups. I didn't see on Moodle yet your results of that. I hope you've had a chance to meet up in your groups and review some of your situational or context analyses that you've done in your projects. And I would just like on a meta level to review how that group work went for you. Then we will take a closer look at impact hypotheses, first with a quick recap or input from my side again, and then there will be a moment for you to reflect on this and then also to exchange in smaller groups that Cesar will put together later on. Then I hope you've seen my message regarding the log frames. The assignment that is due this Friday is a review of your log frames to see where the log frame meets the theory and where what the positive aspects you feel are about the log frame highlighted in green, and maybe where you think the log frame could be improved based on what you learned. And depending on how far you're at with that, or even if you're not far, that doesn't matter. I hope you have, or some of you have your log frames with you here, and we will see how to organize that session. Maybe some of you want to present in plenary what they've already thought about, or maybe you haven't had the time to do that, then we could do that collectively. We will have plenty of time to do that later, and we can see what best suits you. Then we have a quick feedback poll regarding virtual classroom number 1, and I will provide you with an outlook on module 2. So I would love to start directly with the check-in, and Cesar will be sharing a link to a Padlet in the chat, and he will also be showing the Padlet in a moment, because what I would love you to write on there, you will see 3 categories and cards in red, green, and yellow. What you loved about module 1, what you found challenging, and what you learned. I have pre-created some cards there. You're welcome to add more if you need to add, like you can just click on them and write something. You have the link now in the chat. You need to open the link in your own browser. And then I would be happy if you could fill in what you loved or liked about module 1, what you found challenging maybe, and what you learned about it. And if you need additional cards, as I said, at the bottom right, there is a pink plus that you can simply select. Should you have issues with that, just let us know. Feel free to raise your hand or to just open your mic otherwise.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Yes, hi, Antonia. I'm Africanus.
Hi,
I'm the project manager
Africanus.
for yes, from
Hi.
Tanzania. Sorry, I'm struggling in picking this card, but I can't. It's like when I pick the card, as you said, that it should provide me a pressed light, but I can't see it.
If you hover over the card, there is a little pen where it says edit post. Like you can't exactly, that's what Cesar is showing here. You can't click here on what Cesar is showing because you need to open it on your own browser. So Africanus, if you just click on the link that Cesar just posted in the chat, you can just do that there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And Africanus, I just renamed you because your name was user.
Okay.
And I'm sure user is not your proper name.
Yeah, it's fine.
I don't see anything yet that is written on the Padlet. Just hover over. Just
When
hover.
I click it,
Uh-huh.
when I click there, no, it doesn't allow me to write anything.
It doesn't allow you to write anything.
Yeah.
That is strange.
You just provide.
Can you
this
try again?
Yes.
It should allow you to edit the post.
No, the option it's provided here, it's more options. It's connect to a post, disconnect from a post, and expand a post.
No, you need to click on edit post on what Cesar is showing, the top, exactly that pen. So if you hover over one of the cards, just click on the pen. And otherwise, what we can also do is that you just open your mics and you say those things. But here, like for example, the first person is managing to do it already.
Okay.
So a fresh look. So if you hover over with your mouse over one of the posts, like one of the cards, then it's exactly that pen that you see here in Zoom on the screen. And then you can edit the cards. And here I see that they loved the group discussion. Something that they learned is the names of some classmates and their projects. That's really nice. Something in the challenging part I can't really read, unfortunately, because it's behind the cards. We can just, internet was cut down, so that is challenging. If you have trouble with that, feel free to just also open your mic and just let me know what you liked, what you found challenging, and what you learned. And then we can write it in here.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Because for me, I find it difficult to write here, Afrikaans speaking.
Yes,
actually, for
sure.
me, I was very interested to really understand the whole concept of result-based project psychomanagement. It was very good, at least to have the whole concept, but also what's all about as far as Helvetas as an organization is concerned when it comes to result-based project psychomanagement. I really like to, even the videos I checked, it was very helpful in making sure that it makes it easier to understand the whole concept, but also how to apply different things when it comes to the whole project cycle management.
Great. Cesar, I'm just sharing my screen because I'm typing notes as people are speaking. So I just put your points, Africanos, as things that you learned. So results-based PCM really, and the Helvetas side when it comes to PCM. That's good. Thank you. Who else wants to share what they learned? No challenge from your side. Everything was smooth. The whole process was something that they liked. Okay. What did you like? What did you find challenging? And what did you learn? Who wrote definitions point to be improved? What do you mean with that? So that you understood better the definitions of the different concepts shared? Who wrote this? The point here, definitions point to be improved. Could you just open your mic? Whoever wrote that? Who wrote this point here? Definitions point to be improved.
Maybe, sorry, I'm not the one who wrote that. I'm just providing another point. The issue which I found it very useful.
Yeah.
It was the whole issue of problem analysis. How to especially the whole situation of situation analysis, how to identify stakeholders, how to identify partners. Actually, for me, it was very useful. And it made things very easy.
Great. Thank you, Africanus. Thank you. Then we see here interesting tools, Padlet and Mentimeter. That is interesting because so far, like in the module, I think you haven't quite used it yet. You guys are really good at connecting these boxes here, which was not fully my intention, but it's working. So something that you learned was the theory of change and the log frame. Other colleagues' experiences, that's really good. Who wrote that they find the course structure challenging? Could you maybe open your mic, because that is an important point, and maybe I can provide clarification or we can adapt something. Who wrote that the course structure here is challenging? Did you have a challenging time with the content, or was it time? What was challenging regarding the course structure? And somebody wrote that they missed module 1. I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope that maybe then this classroom provides some detail. Yes?
Actually, I put it in the what did you learn, but I don't know why it jumped to another column.
Sorry, where did you put it, Lynn?
In the third column, what did you learn?
The course, okay, I see. That's good. Okay, so the course structure is something, okay, so something that you learned. That's good. I will just put it here again, and I will tidy up this Padlet afterwards. Okay, but I'm glad that you didn't find the course structure challenging. Okay, that's good. Some other things that you liked is how to do and why to do a situational analysis in the project design phase. Maybe is there somebody else who wishes just to open their mic to see, to contribute what they liked, what you found challenging, or what you learned?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Victor. Nice to
virtually
meet you.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
good.
Great. I also am also those who failed to make in the first virtual class, but I went through the documents and I want to thank everyone who made it. I also saw the video. It was very interesting, kind of conversations between the students and also our facilitators. It's really, really impressive.
That's great.
We also had, of course, it was late, but we had the time also to look at the group work. And it was very interesting to see how we use different examples of the projects from different countries to analyze the impact hypothesis and the logical interventions. So for me, that exercise was also very interesting, also reflecting on the project that I'm working now and the project I worked before with Helvetas Tanzania. So it was really, really useful. And I think we might have so much to learn in this period of the 10-week period of this course.
That is great.
I'm looking very much forward.
Thank you very much for sharing, Victor, and happy that you're here today with us. We are full today, actually. All participants of the course are in this classroom, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anybody else who wishes to share something? Feel free to just open your mic. Maybe Bobo or May from Myanmar, how did you get on? Were you able to get on with module 1? How was the situation for you with internet cuts? Could you maybe open your mic and share?
Hello, Antonia.
Hi.
Hi. Yes, we also join today classroom, but we missed in the T1 classroom one. Yes, we are also trying to your document to understand for this test. Yes, we hope we can join today's session and the next session. We also can join. Yes.
Fingers crossed. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here today. That's really great.
Yes, thank you.
Is there somebody else who wishes to share anything?
Hello, this is me. This is Mohan from Nepal.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Fine. Last time I missed my class, first virtual class. So even going through the document link you have shared, I'm some points that is really very appreciative, that method of this problem analysis, and also how the working assumption to be made while designing the new project in the certain situation. That is also good learning from the documents. And likewise, I'm a little bit, I have to focus on hypothesis or some kind of this kind of things that we have to assume before project planning or designing. That is the another things. And more learn how to make systematic the logical developing the logical framework of the project. That is also the important things, and that that I can somehow I can catch from the document. So it's very nice to have link with you and to join the colleagues around the world. So I think we can go more learning and more things ahead. I hope so. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohan, and happy that you're here today. May, shall I call you Molly based on what you wrote in parentheses? You wrote that you're interested in qualitative data analysis. That's great. We will come to that in a later module when it comes to quantitative and qualitative data analysis. But can you maybe just say whether you would like to be called Molly? Is that why it's written in brackets? Maybe you can just open your mic.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And happy that you're here today. Wonderful.
Just quick comment from my side. It's Maciej. I just wanted to say that so far I like the balance that you keep between theoretical and practical knowledge. I also like the video you recorded, that you also bring your own examples. I think it was from Kosovo, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's quite very informative and very practical.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will just add that to the Padlet, even though I'm not sharing it anymore. So mix of inputs, videos, examples. That's great. Thank you very much, Maciej. Anything else somebody wishes to share before we continue? No, then I will just share my slides again. As I said before, the concepts and the different things that are covered in Module 1 may be overwhelming because there are a lot of things in there that are relevant to think about when you are in the project design phase, in the context analysis, in the stakeholder analysis. The reason why we provided you with so many aspects is to give you really the whole spectrum of things you can use, tools that you have at your disposal, that other organizations and that Helvetas are using. And I just want to take around 15 to 20 minutes to just walk through a few of them and to maybe go a bit deeper or to clarify a little bit. You're welcome to interrupt me at any time if you have a question. I may not necessarily see if there is a raised hand. Cesar, if there is a raised hand at some point, if you could just let me know by opening your mic, that would be great. What I want to start with is like what the module lined out is obviously at the beginning of what we want to do, there is a problem that we want to tackle. And this problem can be identified in a problem tree. I will come to that in a moment. And then there are various tools that help you conceptualize and help you unpack those and to distinguish them a bit more clearly and to better understand what their purpose is and how they can help you is something that I want to do in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So here really ultimately what we want to do, as I said, is we want to solve a problem, and the problem is at the core of something that we want to tackle, and obviously there are underlying causes of a problem. So here it's an example from a NADL course where they say the problem that they have and that they want to tackle is that children are often sick and have diarrhea. And as you see at the bottom, what is part of this problem tree is really to see, okay, what are the causes of this problem? So where is this? The problem usually is a symptom. What are the causes that create this problem? And as you see here, they developed they identified 4 causes, such as drinking dirty water, maybe hygiene habits are poor, people sometimes relieve themselves in open air, or children may also be undernourished. And while it's important to understand the causes on the one hand, it's also really important to understand, okay, what are the effects of the problem that you identified? So you see at the top, children missing school due to being sick, higher child mortality, or really also obviously because high health costs will put pressure on the budget of the family. And the idea here with this problem tree is that you start really with the point that you want to tackle, and that you then turn this problem tree into an objectives tree. So what do you seek to achieve? Because obviously you want to do something with it to tackle this problem. So what is the desired future situation? And there, what is really important is to have a cause-effect logic. So you will link how, if you do something, to what will that lead? And not necessarily every problem has to be translated into an objective though. So this just as a starting point, why we start with the problem tree. Then when it comes to terminology, I mean, the things that you've heard are theory of change, impact hypothesis, results chain, then also the log frame. And those may be confusing because they're not always used in, like sometimes they're used interchangeably. So theory of change and impact hypotheses may be used interchangeably sometimes. Sometimes even results chains and impact hypotheses. And I just want to take a moment really to dissect them and to make it a bit clearer for you. So the theory of change, I will go a bit deeper into that in a moment, really is the broadest of them all. And the impact hypothesis is often what we work with, because this is also the tool and the approach that the Swiss Department for Development and Cooperation has used most in the last years as one of the main donors. But some donors also work with theories of change as tools. And the impact hypothesis, for example, does not only look at impact, but at the effects that we seek to achieve. And what you see here in the middle really are the different tools that we can work with. So the results framework or the results chain, the log frame, to have an impact hypothesis. And don't worry, I will also go into detail about the impact hypothesis. And the theory of change really is the broadest thing outside that links very much to values that we have in a society. It's really the change that we seek to achieve at a societal level. And it's very closely linked to values, beliefs, also positions of power, who is in charge of doing something, motivations of people, and it's also linked to assumptions, but the assumptions are also obviously coming into play in the log frame and in the results framework. So digging deeper into theories of change. I don't want to go through that in very much detail, but Rosalind Eiben from the Institute of Development Studies has identified 5 fundamental theories of change. So we're starting big picture here. So really what we seek to achieve ultimately is system change, systematic change, and societal change. And she identified 5 ways of how change can be brought about in a society. So it can be, for example, through individuals, all of them seeking opportunities and working towards their own happiness. It can be through progress of knowledge and technological development. It can be through new beliefs, ideas, or values, where this beliefs bubble comes into play that you saw before. It can be purposeful collective action, so joining together, or through contestation of the status quo. And what you see in blue underneath those 5 points are what that could mean for projects that we work with. So the change at societal level is something that we seek to influence, but something that we can't control if that really happens. The only thing that we can do is we can work towards it. And the blue things you see there is that you, for example, create an environment for people to pursue their life choices. You can mobilize poor and marginalized people. You include them. You work with your primary stakeholders. You try to influence and transform ideas or values or beliefs in a society. You try to change maybe political structures or social economic power relations that are taking place at the moment for like you try to tackle at that point. So this is really what like the theory of change really is the broadest of them all, and we can influence towards it in a certain way, but we can't fully control that change really takes place. Then just to clarify regarding the different concepts, as I said before, impact hypothesis was a long time the chosen term by SDC, even though SDC is recognizing that some other organizations are using theory of change or are linking more closely to this broader term. And those terms are often used interchangeably. But what is common is that those are narrative or graphical illustrations that describe the influence, so the chain of influences, so really from outputs to the impact that you seek to achieve of a project or of a program, and ultimately with the ultimate contribution to improve the livelihoods of disadvantaged people, which is at the core of what we seek to do. What I said before and what I tried to show also with this problem tree, it's all about cause-effect relations. So also to have a contribution logic there. If we do this and the assumptions that we make for our project are correct, then the following will happen. And that part really is key. We will come to that over and over again. If we do this and our assumptions are correct, then the following will happen. And there is no set in stone definition of these terms. There is no blueprint of how you can do them. You should really look at impact hypotheses and theories of change as a flexible approach and as a product that enables you to critically think about your project throughout the project cycle. It's really important to do it at the beginning, but also impact hypotheses really help you to look at them again if they make sense and if they're plausible during the project cycle. So this is a tool that you will really be using throughout the entire project cycle, ideally. Then I wanted to share with you a few examples as are shared in the materials. The different versions here of a theory of change, as highlighted by Maine in the briefing note from SDC that you have also in your materials, are you can have a narrative, maybe this is the one that you've come across most, maybe not. It may be a 1 to 2 sentence statement. In this case, I think it's a 3-sentence statement of like really narrating your impact hypothesis. It's a text version. So this is also where you could think elevator pitch, for example. So you meet somebody in an elevator or at a conference, at a tea break, for example, and you need to describe in 2 to 3 sentences what your project seeks to achieve. Then this narrative part really comes into play. Then there is a visual illustration that can be used. So this really provides an overview. And the narrative part here is an example from Bhutan that is in your materials. The visual illustration here is an example from Laos. So you can also clarify these cause-effect relations with arrows in a visual way, if that, for example, is easier. If this happens, if we do this, then that will happen, and ultimately we seek to achieve this impact. And lastly, in my previous job, this is the type of theory of change I've worked with most, are causal pathway diagrams. Usually they're from the left to the right. When it comes to the results chain, they may be from the bottom to the top and cover really the different components, resources or inputs, activities, outputs that lead to behavior change at outcome level, and ultimately the impact again. The only challenge here, if you have only the narrative, for example, it may not be detailed enough really to understand the results chain and to understand this causal logic, and also the intervention logic that's described in the log frame. But like you can really make sure by doing this process that you have understood the project when you can describe your project in just a few sentences. That is really, really key. Then here, taking the same example from the NADL course as I just showed you with the problem tree, I just want to take this example of a results chain. And as I mentioned before, sometimes results chains and impact hypotheses are used interchangeably, but they serve different purposes. And here you can really attribute you can really make links between the different parts. So for example, taking here at the bottom, we're starting with the box in the middle. So let's say ultimately the impact we want to achieve is that the incidence of diarrhea is decreased. The problem was that children are often sick with diarrhea. We want to be reminded. And the point at the bottom in the middle is, for example, at organizational level, that water committees are established. And then in this results chain, they made sure that these points at the bottom are linked to the different levels. So you see that this point is linked to 3 points higher up. So 3 activities. So the maintenance of pumps, for example, needs to be secured. Water yield of wells need to be managed, and the affordability of water needs to be assured. So these 3 things can be done concretely. And that then leads, all those 3 aspects lead to access to safe water is increased. So they really attribute to that. And with the number 3 in this arrow here, you see that they already linked it to one assumption that you see at the right. So if there is a strong water committee, then that can happen. So if we do this and there is a strong water committee, then access to safe water will be increased. And then at output level, this is something that we can control and that we can really know that we can achieve that. At outcome level, this is already one step further ahead, where there is behavior change coming into the mix. So when there is access to safe water, then people need to use this safe water. So the increased use of safe water is an outcome. And here, for example, Also, the assumption holds that the water quality is controlled. So really that the safe water really is safe. And how do we know that? By checking the water quality. And ultimately, this leads to the impact of the incidence of diarrhea decreasing. So this really helps you in the results chain from inputs, from activities over outputs to outcome and impact level to have these cause-effect relations. And by adding the assumptions at the right and here directly into the diagram, that really helps to wrap your head around those issues. If there are questions, feel free to just open your mic. Victor, I saw that you have a raised hand. Feel free to open your mic.
Yes, thank you very much, Antonia, for this impact hypothesis. My question is it happening that sometimes you have something like 2 levels of the impact hypothesis? For example, in our group discussion, we were looking at one of the projects where an income was a targeted outcome or impact, I would say. But then that income is also used as an input to generate another desired outcome. Let's say contributing to the local development to improve a certain kind of outcome that is desired. So I was thinking, and it happened that in some situations, you can have the same impact hypothesis, but it's linked like a 2-level hypothesis where the outcome can also be an input for another outcome.
Mm-hmm. I see your point, yes. I think like that is definitely possible. The income that you generate with your project as an outcome or as an output maybe is something that you can control, but it's not something that you have as an input at the beginning. So I wouldn't, it serves the purpose as an input. I see what you mean with that, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's an input at the beginning, because when you start your project, it's not one of the resources that you can use. It's something that you will generate during your project. So I see what you mean with the two parts, but I think this is something where you can do something with the outcomes and you take it further towards the impact that you want to achieve. And but I wouldn't confuse it with an input that you have at the beginning, because it's not. It's something that you create. Did that answer your question? I think you froze there for a moment. I hope that clarified your question, Victor. Let me know if not. Is there another question for now?
Yes, Anthony, I have one question.
Yes.
Just one, not more.
Sure.
Just I'm also working for the water project in Nepal here. We have integrated water resource management program, and we are working for the water sanitation hygiene. Especially one component is wash. So somehow I'm just asking you whether we made many assumptions in while designing this result chain. Is it good to have more assumptions in one log frame or result chain, or we have to minimize such kind of assumptions while developing this kind of chain?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question regarding the number of assumptions. I think the assumptions can be part of a results chain. They can be translated into the log frame. They're part of that too. I think where it comes to limiting things, we recommend to limit the indicators that you will use and that you will put in the log frame as to indicators of whether you are reaching your output, you're reaching your outcome, or you're reaching your impact. However, the assumptions I don't think that there is a specific number that we say, and I don't think like that varies from project to project. What needs to be made sure is that you think about those things, like what do you really assume, what needs to be there, what circumstance, what behavior, like how do entities and your stakeholders need to behave, or what do they need to do that certain things can happen. Those are things that are important to bear in mind. So I think on the assumption side, really it's up to you to reflect what needs to be in place in order for your project to happen. And the assumptions are sometimes things that you can't influence. Like here, for example, to have the assumption that the water committee is strong, maybe you don't have an influence on that, whether it's strong or not, but it's important that you think about these things, because otherwise you may see, okay, we've done all the activities that we wanted, but we haven't really reached that there is an increased access to safe water. Why is that? Well, because the water committee, for example, is not as strong as you intended it to be. So I don't think that, like, I wouldn't necessarily limit myself so much with the assumptions. Take the relevant ones, obviously. Don't make a list of 50 assumptions, but really think about the different steps. And there, in the materials you saw, when translating the impact hypothesis or the results chain into the log frame, you really have the different levels of output, outcome, and impact, and you link it with the assumptions, as is done here in a little bit. So if we do this and this assumption holds, then we reach the next level. And if we then do that and that assumption holds, then we reach the next level. And there you can just see if you covered all assumptions.
That's good. And just one another. Somehow we can also, transform this assumption into the activities as well. For example, we have strong user committee. One assumption is there, 3 number. And if there is any kind of activities that supports for making the water user committee strong or capacitated, then we can add some kind of the activities for, making the user committee strong, or making the user committee more capacitated.
Yeah.
So we can also, transform this one to a certain kind of the activities as well. Yeah.
Obviously, yes, of course you can try to influence those things, but certain things will always be beyond your control. If you capture them in your assumptions, then you've thought about it holistically.
Okay.
Thank you, Mohan.
Thank you very much.
Lindo, you have your hand raised.
Yes, it's me. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you well.
Just want to clarify that result chain or theory of chain hypothesis impact is with the same things that you find the problem, and then what you expect the result, right? With the same thing, and from even you have result chain or theory of change or impact hypothesis, and then you convert it into the detailed log frame, and then from the log frame you will design the project activity and the KPI in relevant to the log frame, right?
So, for example, in the log frame, activities are not necessarily in there. So the activities you already think about when you do the conceptual steps before, and those are really important. You need to do. I will come to that in a moment. You will need to do these things, these conceptual analysis and thinking before you can translate it into the log frame. The log frame is a planning document and something that you need to do oftentimes. Also, it's a requirement for tenders and for applications, but the activities are not necessarily always spelled out in there. And then obviously when it comes to the indicators, you already predefine them in the log frame, and then an M&E plan, for example, a monitoring and evaluation plan would be a next step where you really detail when do you collect that, who will collect that, how will you really go about that. But we will come to that in the next step, in the next module.
Okay.
Thank you for that question.
It depends on the donor or the organization, which or who will prefer to use theory of change or result chain, right? Which model?
Yes, that depends. but I will come to that in a moment. I will also compare what the difference is between a theory of change and the log frame. And I will, in the next moment, when we will look deeper at impact hypotheses, is why it's important to make them explicit, to really do them. Even if the donor doesn't ask you to have an impact hypothesis, why it's really key for you to have one and to do this process. I will come to that in a moment.
So is there any difference between result chain and theory of change?
So what I mentioned with the theory of change really is the biggest picture, the change you want to achieve at societal level. So let me just go back here, actually, to this visual here. The theory of change is the big picture, really, the change you wish to achieve at system level. And the impact hypothesis can be a narrative way of what your project wants to achieve. And it will, in a narrative way, describe what your results chain shows you visually. So oftentimes the impact hypothesis and results chain sometimes are used interchangeably, but they're different things.
Okay.
And the theory of change really is the broadest of them all. So they're not the same.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
No worries. That's why we're here. It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's clear to me. Thank you.
I will now touch upon the points where it comes to translating it into the log frame. So in the log frame, you have at the left on the vertical axis, you have either your logic of intervention or strategy of intervention, or sometimes it's called hierarchy of objectives, to really have your inputs, your activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact lined out at the left, usually with inputs from the bottom to impact at the top. And as I mentioned, inputs and activities are not necessarily always included there. And what I wanted to show you here is to understand those three aspects here at the beginning. So what you can put in: financial, human, material resources, the activities, the things that you do, and also what products or services you create with that. Those are things that are within your control. You can, with fair certainty, say we will reach these outputs based on our inputs, activities, and if our assumptions hold. And the part here at the right is really where we come into the area of the effects, and the outcomes are the first level where you will see behavior change. So based on the products or services as outlined here created, how do people behave afterwards? What will change? And ultimately, on the impact level, the long-lasting change in society that you contribute to. So the part here at the right is how you make a difference and the things that you can work towards, but that you cannot fully control. And remember the 5 theories of change that I mentioned, how to achieve or what societal change could look like, and what implications that has for your project. And that's the parts where you can start and where you can include those aspects towards long-lasting changes at societal level that you can contribute to. Then here this is what I mentioned there that you see at the left under column A, the hierarchy of objectives, sometimes logic of intervention or strategy of intervention. And this previous work that you've done at conceptual level really is important to do, and is necessary in order for you to be able to develop your log frame, because all that part before, you can't create a log frame without those things before. Yeah, I would, of course you could, but maybe it's not as sound as it could be if you do those steps before. So it's really vital to complete those processes before. And the log frame can also be both a process and a product. When we talk about it, it's mostly the log frame matrix that we talk about, and this is what you see here. So on the vertical axis, the hierarchy of objectives, the activities, as I said, not always necessarily included. So from outputs to impact level. And then you have the horizontal aspect also of linking the different aspects with your assumptions. And there is a really great example from Nadal in your materials that helps you show how that works.
Antonia,
Yes.
we see the presentation mode. Okay.
Ah.
We see the full slide.
Ah, that's weird. Okay. So now you see the full slide?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's good. And then, as I mentioned, I just wanted to compare briefly or like explain a bit the differences between theory of change and the log frame, because not only the tools are different, but the purposes are different and their characteristics are different. And with the theory of change, I was talking about big picture, as you know, and really it's a process. It's a process of critical thinking. It's about consensus building. You include various stakeholders in there. You do it with the partners. You sometimes involve primary stakeholders in it. It's a planning tool, but it's also a communication tool. It's a tool for monitoring and also for evaluation. And the purpose of a log frame is predominantly for planning and also helps you for monitoring. So it doesn't have this consensus building reflective element necessarily. And while in a theory of change, obviously system change is really complex, there is room for deeper questioning, to really go deep into the things, to critically think about it and to embrace the complexity. And a log frame, on the other hand, is somewhat a simplification of reality, because it goes into the basic logic of intervention and is a tabular representation of the change you seek to achieve. So reality is not necessarily so simple as it is in the log frame. And with that, for example, the log frame is rather descriptive. It will state what will be achieved or what you thought or what you think you will achieve. And a theory of change, really with those cause-effect relations, is explanatory. Is how will that change happen? What needs to happen? Why? How is the contribution logic? So really a theory of change will give you much more explanations of how a project can evolve, while a log frame can't necessarily do that. And the pathways I've shown, either you can show them in a graphical way, in a causal way, in an overview. You can do it in a narrative way, and you really cover various aspects there. And in the log frame, you really cover output, outcome, and impact, including the indicators. While the log frame suggests causal relations, it doesn't go into analysis of why there is a cause-effect relationship. And in the theory of change and also in the impact hypotheses, really you have a lot of space to have these attributions and to have a plausibility of the assumed causal relations. So you can also use that to make evidence-based checks. Is our theory of change, is our impact hypothesis, is it plausible? Are the cause, like, are we achieving the effect that we want to achieve? You don't necessarily get that out of a log frame, but you can get that out of a theory of change. Are there questions from your side still on this?
I think, Antonio, that this was a very clear explanation.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mathieu. Do you still
see not the presentation mode?
That is so strange.
Now we're back.
Now you're back. Okay, thank you.
There are no questions in the chat and no raised hands, Antonio.
That is good. Thank you very much. Then, if there are more questions coming up, just let me know. And I would suggest we take a 5-minute stretch break until 5 past the hour, I think, except for Nepal, where the time is a bit different. Let's take a 7-minute break precisely. Here it's 2 to 10, and let's resume at 10:05 or 5 past the hour if you're 2 ahead of the hour. So 7 minutes of a break, and let's resume then. Just get up for a moment, maybe stretch a bit, walk around. Mathieu, if you need to leave us, thank you for being here for the beginning. And the others, I hope to see you back in 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back. Could I just ask you to write in the chat whether you're back, or raise your hand or open your camera to see that we are all together here again. I hope you had a good short break. Thanks, Lindo, for the celebration emoji. Doreen, you still had a question. Feel free to ask that before we go into the next session.
Okay. I want to ask you if we are in the same page. On theory of change, you can have it before the implementation of project, yeah?
Yes.
And you can start implement it before. You can start using that theory of change before the implementation of project.
What would you use it for? For your reflection purposes?
Yes. But on logical framework, you can use it on the implementation was start, or?
Yeah, the theory of change needs to happen before, indeed. And defining your impact hypothesis is something that you're doing in the project design phase. So even if the project doesn't start, you can definitely do it. But you can also develop a logical framework without necessarily putting it into practice. But you do need several planning documents and steering documents to conduct your project. So the log frame is a tool that you will use to plan and to monitor, and then the M&E plan after that is something else that you will need. Yes, but what I tried to say with those critical thinking reflection processes that are based around the problem you wish to tackle and the impact you wish to achieve, this is something that you need to do beforehand, because otherwise it will be really difficult to make a solid log frame that is achieving what you wish to influence.
Okay, thank you. Understand.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, Antonia.
Hi.
I want to know, can we change the design in the result chain during the project duration?
Hang on just a second. I was just getting called. Cesar, could you contact Lembris Lizer, please, because he's struggling to access the virtual classroom and he just called me. Could you send him the link maybe again?
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank you very much. And could you please repeat the question from before? Sorry, I couldn't hear you when my Skype was ringing.
Yes. And can we change the result chain? Can we change the design and the result chain during the project duration?
That is a good question. What we will come to in a moment is the impact hypothesis and the results chain. Those are things that serve you, as I mentioned, not only in the design phase, but it serves you also for plausibility checks. Is what we intended to do really happening, or is there something that needs to be changed? And then it always depends on whether it's a project that you're conducting with own funds or whether you're conducting it on a mandate. But if something that you didn't like, if something has changed, for example, also in the context that has an influence on your project and it can't be conducted as it was planned, then you need to make adjustments, and then you need to be in touch with the donor to see where you can make adjustments. But the impact hypothesis serves you the purpose to be able to do that, because you there really have the cause-effect relations. And if you see that something is not happening as you intended to, you can make those adjustments based on exchanges with the donor and exchanges with the partners that you are involved with in the project. Molly, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Antonia.
Great. We will still have time for questions later on. What I want to do as a next step is you had, I created groups for you previously during the module, and I hope you got together in those groups. Some of you mentioned that you did and that you talked about impact hypotheses, which is great. I hope you also talked about the situational analysis. So a context analysis, a power analysis, a gender analysis maybe, that are tools and reflection processes that are used oftentimes at the beginning of a project in the design phase. And at a meta level, I would be interested now, because you looked at specific analyses that you shared with your colleagues, and you identified strengths there, things that were done well, maybe things that were not done so well in the analysis, opportunities for improvement, and maybe external factors to the analysis, like changes in the context, for example, that could be defined as threats. And since Cesar is at the moment in touch with Lembris, I will just see that I share. Cesar,
I see it.
perfect. Cesar posted a link in the chat to a Google slide document, and I would kindly ask you to click on that. And at the bottom, at the top, you will see, hi Lembris, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. I was struggling to get into.
No worries, glad that you're here now.
Thank you.
Please click on the link that Cesar just posted in the chat, and then you can click on Open with Google Slides.
So should I go back and do it now?
Yes, please. Can you see the last link in the chat, Lembris?
Or should I quit and come join again?
No.
Yeah,
Cesar just posted again. Please stay. No need.
Okay.
No need to leave. And I will just share my screen, Cesar. You don't have to do it, because I want to show how to get there. So when you click on it, you should it should open like this. And then I would kindly ask you to click on Open with Google Slides.
Okay.
And then I would invite everyone. We have 2 people already on it. I would like to invite you to share your reflections on your situational analyses that you discussed in your group work during this module. So what were some of the strengths of those analyses? What were maybe weaknesses? What were opportunities and what were threats? You can just click in here, and then you can just type away.
Okay.
And I posted two slides here, so you have ample space to do so. Please just take a moment, and everyone, please just go on the slide and just write your points.
It's downloading Google browser.
Don't have your microphone.
Sorry, yes, sorry. It shouldn't be downloading, it should be opening a link for you, like on the browser. As I said before,
instead of opening, it is downloading. I don't know. Maybe. Let me go back and do it again.
Otherwise, let me share this link with you and see if that works.
Okay.
Two people already managed to be on it. So that is good. Otherwise, please just see if this works.
Let me open the link here.
Yes, now we have more people on here. Great. More animals. Wonderful. Victor, if you try with the latest link, with the last link I shared you, it should be letting you on it.
Yes, I'm in now, I think.
That's great, Lembris. Victor just asked, he can't get in. Victor, can you see when you click on the last link that I shared? Yes, you're in now. Wonderful. So I see that one person already copied the slide again. That's great. Can you please add the points, like what on slide number 2, we already see something. I will just give you a moment to just fill in your points, and then we can take a moment to exchange about it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, I see some points already in there. So knowing some strengths of the analyses that you did are knowing the local situation, the causes of the situation that you're looking at, that you're trying to change, the main results well defined, and the cause-effect relations. I think there maybe you also talked about impact hypotheses. Labor and resources and FTAs as strengths mentioned. As weaknesses, I see the value added as a weakness, the visibility and research and development. What do you mean with value added as a weakness? Who wrote that? Maybe you can just open your mic. Who is the anonymous elephant? Low value added. There is a low value added of the analysis. Could you open your mic? Who wrote low value added products?
It's me.
Yes, Lindo.
Yes, this is analysis about our project, which support the export of furniture product from Vietnam to EU. About the strength, so we have the labor, the resource, and Vietnam is successfully signed the lot of FTA service strength, and this is the low value added products. I mean here that even we have the cheap labor and cheap factory of low cost, but the value added for each product is low. So
Okay,
the
I
margin
see.
is low.
I see.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much for that clarification. Then some threats mentioned here are competitors, trust could be a threat. I think that's a very important point. Chinese.
I'm here is many people from Europe still concerned a lot about the illegal timber in Vietnam.
I see.
Now we are, still a lot of bad news on illegal timber.
Great, thank you very much for that addition. I will just see what we have here. Some weaknesses were that there are limited resources for analysis and limited information to collect those. Threats were less understanding of low power or of interest groups and local political instability. Yes, I can well imagine that. Local resources are available as some strengths and owned by local community and local government. Land disputes as sensitive issues. What do we have here? Low transparency as weaknesses, inconsistencies in the policy framework, and the local government trying to avoid certain issues. I see. I will still give you a moment to finish what you wrote here. Here is another interesting weakness: stakeholder analysis at national level not well defined. So responsibilities expected from the stakeholders are not clear. That's very interesting, and this is something where maybe it can be readjusted afterwards. It's important that you found that out. Very good. Please finish what you were writing. And I will share this with you also in the materials afterwards. Are there any questions? How was the group work for you? Can you maybe open your mics? I'm not sure if you only talked about the situational analysis or if you also talked about your impact hypotheses. Can we maybe gather some impressions? How did the group work go? And how did you meet? Did you meet over Teams, over Skype, over Zoom? Maybe we can just gather some impressions there. Victor.
Yes, for us, basically, of course, we started very late to do the group work. That's the thing. But because of that, and given the busy of everyone, we created a chat, a Google chat. So we created a document, and everyone was giving the comments for specific projects that we have included as an example. So we're looking, we had a text of each of the projects and looking what were the good things and what were the areas that we think need some improvement. And we were looking not only on the theory of change, but also we are looking at the impact hypothesis. One project was on the impact hypothesis and the other was on the theory of change, basically.
Okay.
So our comments were related to that.
Okay.
And we also, for example, on the theory of change, we had a project on the we were based our discussion on the Helvetas Vietnam country strategy, 2013-2017. And looking at the strategy, we realized that because of the situational analysis, they come up with the interventions at different levels. At micro level, which targets on the technologies and production improvement of the primary beneficiary. At meso level, it mainly focuses on the local partners who could support the achievement of the target on the target beneficiary. And at macro level, it was mainly looking at the advocates at national level on the policies that could support development issues at local levels.
Okay.
So the good thing we found out is the strategy really has a good cause-effect relationship, and the main results were well defined, but also the clarity in terms of the dimensions of the poverty. That was the target on economic and also social cultural settings of the society.
Great.
Also, we are looking at who are the stakeholders and if the stakeholder analysis was well defined at all these levels.
I can't hear you anymore.
There is where we realize that it seems that at national level, where the strategy aim at looking at the role of advocacy and policy and enabling environment, it seems that there was not so much of the stakeholder analysis to understand exactly who are the government institutions, which government institutions, and also civil society organizations, which are necessary to contribute to the policy changes that would affect the primary beneficiary at the micro level. So that is our observations that we looked at.
Thank you very much.
One thing also to mention, we're also reflecting to Helveta's approach on systemic changes and the large scale impact. We arrived at the theory of change developed for Helveta's Vietnam country strategy has also really focused on bringing a systemic change by involving key actors at different levels, micro level, meso level, and also at macro level. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Victor. And it's great that you looked at both the impact hypothesis and also the stakeholder analysis. I'm just pasting here again the link to the group work results in the chat, because what would be really nice is that you share your results, a short, share the stakeholder analysis you reviewed and what you discussed in the different groups. If you could share that there from the 4 groups, that would be really, really great. Then I can also have a look at that. And it would be great if there is some group that maybe hasn't done it yet, to look at a stakeholder analysis from your project. So not necessarily look at something from the materials that are shared, but really to look at your project. Can we maybe have one more group open their mic where you looked at a stakeholder analysis? What did you observe? How was the exercise for you? Does somebody else want to share? Yep, you opened your mic.
Hello, so I would like to
Hi.
share a little bit. Hi, I'm in group with Victor, and I would like to share something about the
Sorry, Lindo, I think Ziep was first. Can we maybe hear what she has to say, and we come to you after?
No, sorry. I'm sitting in the same room and using the teleconference.
Okay,
That's
great.
why.
Okay, sure.
But now Ziep is speaking.
Great, wonderful. Can we maybe see you as well? That would be lovely if the connection permits. Yay!
Okay. I want to share something about the project that I'm following. I have a short analysis of its situation. So we are working for the secure land rights for ethnic minorities in Vietnam. And it's a quite very hard project because we have met many obstacles in the planning as well as in the implementation of the project. So we would like to share with you that the project is to protect the ethnic minorities in the northern areas of Vietnam. However, we do not assess them directly, but we try to provide resources and capacity building for those who support them. They are the mediators at local level, and members of the Land Alliance it's a kind of association, a kind of civil society to support the ethnic minorities. So we, as you know, the ethnic minorities in the northern areas, they are very poor, but they can access to the internet better, and they have smartphone to use, so it's easier for us to provide capacity building for them and provide better access to information to them. So that's the strength of the project.
Yeah.
For witness.
Yep, sorry, may I just interrupt you briefly? You don't have to go through the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the project as such. I would be interested in a stakeholder analysis or a context analysis of your project. Did you look at that before, like in the design phase? Can you share something about that?
Yeah.
If not, it's not a problem, but we don't need to go through the project details as such at this moment. What would be interesting is to learn more about the situational analysis that you have conducted in the projects, which is what the group work was about.
Actually, we do not have enough time to provide, to discuss on this exercise. So
okay.
I'm just talking about the project that I'm working for.
No problem. Then, like we will have time to look at what your project seeks to achieve. Like we looked at that already in the last session, and there will be some more time to do that in the group work today on impact hypotheses. But if I may, I will then just cut you off here, if that's okay, and see if there is somebody else who wishes to share on a situational analysis, on a context or gender analysis, a power analysis, anything that you developed in the project design phase of your project and that you discussed in your groups.
Okay, so I will give time to another people.
Thank you very much, Siep. Victor, you added the group work to Moodle. That's much appreciated. Thank you. Mohan, you opened your
yeah, yes. Just I want to share some context analysis of our project. Shall I go? Shall I go?
Yes,
Are
sure.
you hearing me?
Sure,
Yeah,
I hear you. Yes.
Okay. Basically, our project is working for integrated water resources management. That is basically, I mean, combination of water sanitation and hygiene, and the productive use. That means providing water for the irrigation, micro irrigation for vegetable farming and cash crop also. And it also includes the, I mean, water governance and also advocacy and capacity building in the water sector in the context of rural context of Nepal. So just I will go through some situation or some context analysis of the project while we developed at the time of project
Sorry,
Okay,
Mohan, may I
beginning of the project.
interrupt you briefly? The
Yeah,
idea,
please.
maybe I wasn't clear. I don't want to go through your situational analyses at this moment. I just wanted to hear how your exchanges about them went, if you had a chance to do that already. If you didn't have a chance yet to do your group work, that's no problem. You can still do it. I shared the link again to the groups that were identified. And
No,
you were
yeah,
in a
yeah.
And if I would
Okay.
just be interested in a short feedback, if you had a chance to meet with your group, how the group work went. I don't need to be like we don't have the time at the moment, unfortunately, to go into that much
Yeah,
detail, but you can
yeah.
submit your situational analysis on Moodle via the link that I shared, and I will just paste it again.
Okay, sorry for that.
No worries. Did
I
you
got
have a
some detail.
chance to? Did you have a chance to meet with your group?
Not yet, but I have made this SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So I have made some bullet point on this strength, weakness, and opportunity. Shall I share or shall I?
I would invite you then to meet with your group colleagues, which are Lembris and Mathieu. Mathieu is no longer in this call at the moment, and
Yeah.
and you just define a moment when you exchange about your situational analyses. And it's great that you already prepared yourself. So it would be great if you can just exchange on it, because really the point of this course is to foster exchange among you, and not only
Shall I share it through the chat or?
There is a question from Lembris how to join your group. You can, like, you have the email addresses of your colleagues, just reach out to them. You can meet up over Zoom or over Skype or over Teams or in a chat. You have your contact details, and if you face trouble, just let me know.
I will do.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I would suggest we carry on then, and we dig a bit deeper into impact hypotheses more concretely. We talked a lot about theories of change and results chains before, but I want to take a bit of a closer look at impact hypotheses as well. You should be able to see my screen now. So we already talked about the fact that impact hypotheses make a plausible description of our project's contribution to poverty reduction, which is ultimately oftentimes the goal that we have. And they provide a joint space for critical reflection. And they really are an added value because they foster really a results orientation of our intervention. What are the results ultimately we want to achieve, and how do we get there? What is needed? Who is needed? How concretely can we reach that goal ultimately? They stimulate discussion, and as I mentioned, this is not something that is done only by the project team. It should be done with the partners. As you see here on the picture, you have various stakeholders involved, and you really get a lot of people around a table or around a sheet of paper or around a tree. Just get people into a circle and really discuss, which would be is one of the highest added values of impact hypotheses. And it really also helps you to unpack maybe hidden beliefs or hidden values, or reveal power constellations that are behind some assumptions that you can otherwise not unpack in, for example, a log frame. So what is an impact hypothesis concretely? It is a tool that you can use for planning and for M&E. So it is a management tool. I mentioned already this narrative explanation. So oftentimes with an impact hypothesis, what we mean is something like an elevator pitch, a 2 to 3 sentence statement of how you seek to achieve the impact and what you need for that. It's a description of the relationship of those different elements in the hierarchy of objectives or the logic of intervention in the left of your log frame that you have that is linked with your assumptions. And sometimes it's made implicit in the log frame, but it's really important to make it explicit, to make the impact hypothesis really explicit. So there are several added values in making it explicit. And even if the donor, I think we had this question before from Lindo, to make it dependent on the donor. An impact hypothesis, to have that clear for you, is really key, even if the donor doesn't ask for it. And why? It is a complementary tool to the log frame that really encourages reflection at a strategic level and at the different stages of the project cycle. Even though it's introduced here at the beginning in the project design phase, it's really important also to look at the impact hypothesis throughout. We've touched upon this. And it can be really, really used also importantly for a plausibility check. We touched upon that before. So really to see, do the cause-effect relations that we established in the impact hypothesis, do they make sense? And you check that, for example, when there are moments for evaluation. And they're really also important as an element of results-based management. So why this extra step? Let me just clarify those points again. Really, developing an impact hypothesis clarifies and builds consensus how you want to bring about change and to ensure a certain coherence in your project. It will help you to put specific knowledge on the context and on the topic into the picture. So this comes from your situational analyses that you've conducted at the beginning. The impact hypothesis is something that can be shared. It can be shared with your project stakeholders, with the primary beneficiaries also. It can be shared with donors. It can be shared for communication purposes. Here, it communicates not only to the primary stakeholders, but it also communicates to donors. So it also is a mode of certain accountability, both upward and downward. And lastly, it really helps you to improve also your M&E system and also your reporting, because you really have a short, concise impact hypothesis that you have jointly developed around your project's impact you seek to achieve. I saw that there was a raised hand. Lembris, please.
Yes, thank you. I was going through my project document and reading through in connection with the materials provided in the Moodle, but I wasn't able to differentiate the theory of change from impact hypothesis. What's the difference between the two?
Yes, very good. Were you, you were only able to join the classroom a bit later, is that right?
Yes.
Because I distinguished the theory of change and the impact hypothesis at the beginning. Let me just go back to that slide briefly, and otherwise I would invite you, let me just go back to that, hang on a second. And otherwise I would invite you to listen to the recording afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think I will go through the recording. Thanks.
I will just share it here again. So what you see, the theory of change really is the outside cloud. And the difference between a theory of change and the impact hypothesis is that the theory of change aims at societal change. So systems change ultimately. And even though we can work to contribute to that, it's not fully in our control. And the impact hypothesis focuses oftentimes on the effects of our work. And so the theory of change goes much broader still than the impact hypothesis. So this as a short answer to that question. And otherwise, I will, as I said, invite you to look at the recording again for more details. Then what are some quality criteria for a good impact hypothesis? This is included in your materials. As I mentioned with this 2 to 3 sentence statement that I mentioned, it's a concise story really about the plausible cause and effect relations and the main results of your project. So with this, I meant this elevator talk or talking to somebody during a tea break at a conference or at a meeting. It has a clear definition of your primary stakeholders, of your target groups, and it also includes relevant factors, for example, of deprivation or exclusion in it, ideally. The dimension of poverty should be clearly addressed, and that you also get from those situational analyses that you do at the beginning. And then it's this plausibility link that I mentioned. It's a description of how the results really ultimately contribute to poverty eradication or the ultimate impact in your given context. And it links the different outcomes to each other and also to the primary stakeholder level and also to the institutional level where institutions are involved. And as mentioned previously, hidden beliefs, for example, power relations that have an influence on your project. So with that, from the context analysis, this is also included in your impact hypothesis. You can distill that into your impact hypothesis. And with that, how your intervention contributes to the impact you set out to achieve. Are there questions regarding impact hypotheses at this stage or anything? Yes, Victor, you have a raised hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Antonia. I just want us to give an insight on the project that I'm working with right now.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is this project is a little bit different in the sense that it's implemented by a consortium of partners.
Yes, okay.
So like a program, then within a program, there are specific projects for different partners. And Helvetas, we also have our Stacy on that.
Mm-hmm.
And the overall goal is to create to improve the resilience of the communities with regard to climate change impact. That is the overall goal, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
like at impact level, what we want to achieve. Then each individual organizations, we as Helvetas, GIZ, and other business partners are working on different components.
Okay.
For us as Helvetas, we are working mainly on 3 areas to contribute to that resilience. One is we use a VSLA model, Village Saving and Lending Association model, to create community groups, 7 groups, 7 and credit groups, to help them do saving, but also lending each others. But also we train them on investment in business opportunities. And because the target for the program is to increase the resilience on climate change, we are mainly promoting businesses in the organic value chains.
Okay.
That is one way we do contribution. But also on the other way, we work with the communities to look at how the community planning processes basically include the issue of climate change in the discussions and dialogues at community level. And ultimately, these climate plans, they have initiatives where the villagers can take to reduce the effect of climate change. Now, my point is, in the development of the log frame, we have been very struggling to kind of find out what are specific indicators we need to put in so that we can contribute to the overall goal of the program.
Okay.
So there have been back and forth discussions between the different organizations to kind of look at how the specific indicators from each of the implementing partners can be to contribute to the overall goal. So that's sometimes what I was trying to bring is not easier, especially for projects which you are not the only one which has control even in doing the situational analysis and all the stuff. For example, I'm the one who is managing the project from the Helvetas side, but during the design of the project, I wasn't there. So it's mainly you take the project document and you try to find specific what are the specific activities you have to do to contribute to that particular overall goal. So it's not easy.
No, exactly. Thank you for sharing that example. And so you mentioned the complexity of having multiple stakeholders in the project. That definitely adds complexity, but I think also is a good reflection of the contexts we work in, because they are not very simple. They're not basic, they are complex. And to work with partners is absolutely key to bring about change, because we can't do it alone. We need to be interconnected. And there was one point, yeah, that you said you had trouble defining the indicators. I think like when you've found consensus around what you want to achieve, which seems to be the case, and if you then translate your impact hypothesis into the log frame, defining indicators is never easy, but you don't have to necessarily have like, this doesn't need to be a consensus activity. Not everybody has to sit around a table. Some people, like a smaller group, can maybe start on the indicators, and then you share it and people can comment and you see if they make sense. Make sure that you don't have too many indicators, that you don't measure too much. Really measure what is important for your project to see whether you're reaching the outputs and outcomes and impact that you wish to achieve. Thanks for sharing that, Victor.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Another question, another comment from one of you? Something that you are confused about or that you wish to ask? It doesn't seem so for the moment. What I would like to do now is I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at what aspects we had thought to cover today based on the great interaction so far and really the exchange with you, which is vital. I propose the following. We have about an hour left. We still want to do a break. And maybe we can do the break before, but I will just introduce the next exercise and see if that makes sense. We had 2 points still that we wanted to do. First, I would want to dive a bit, like give you the chance to dive a bit deeper into your impact hypotheses and to really see, based on what you learned in this module on impact hypotheses or even on theories of change more broadly, to reflect on the advantages of them, see where you face maybe challenges, and to share one aspect that you learned about impact hypotheses or theories of change more broadly. And this is an exercise where Cesar would split you into groups and allows for exchange among you. And then another part that is covered in this module is the log frame. And the exercise, the assignment that is due this Friday, is based on the materials. We ask you to just take a look at your project's log frame or a project's log frame and see maybe where are the strengths and maybe the weaknesses or points of improvement for the log frame. But I think we maybe don't necessarily have the time to do that. And on Moodle, I didn't yet see that anybody submitted their exercises already. So if you agree, I would propose the following. I would propose that we now take a 15-minute break to give you a bit more time to grab a glass of water, a cup of coffee, cup of tea, come back here after 15 minutes, and then we do the exercise here that I outlined, allowing you to exchange again on your impact hypotheses. And then, as you will have to do the assignment anyways, I can be in touch with you bilaterally regarding the log frames. Would you agree with that? Could I maybe just have some reactions in the chat whether you are fine with that proposal? So we would skip the log frame exercise here in the group. I can't seem to be able to see the chat at the moment, unfortunately. Here. Do you agree with this approach? Can you just write in the chat whether you agree or disagree? Victor, you say that's fine, great. Great. So far reactions are positive. Wonderful, great. Then we will do it like that. And Zieb, I saw your question. I will reply to it when we get back to plenary. I would suggest we now let's take a 15-minute break and resume here at 11:10 Central European time, 10 past the hour for everyone except I think Nepal. See you in 15 minutes. Enjoy your break. Hello and welcome back. Can I maybe just see from your videos, or can you post in the chat whether you're back? Wonderful. Great. Nice to see some smiling faces here. Doreen, Mohan, Bobo, Molly, are you back as well?
Hello, I am back.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Great.
We're only missing Lembris and Victor.
Yes. Okay. Oh, they left the call. I see. Okay. I would suggest nonetheless that we continue. There was one question still from Ziep in the chat regarding what are criteria for a good theory of change. I shared the quality criteria indeed for an impact hypothesis. I will share here in the chat a link to a briefing note from SDC on theories of change. And on page 7 there, this document is also linked in your materials. On page 7, you have a list of how to know when you have a good theory of change. So you also have certain criteria there that you are more than invited to take a look at. All right. Let me just open again my slide. I will invite you to do the following now. So, oh, that's strange. Hang on just a second. So it's very strange that you see it. So do you see it big on the big screen? Cesar? No? You
I
see
see
it
now
at the top left?
top left and in the background the presenter's note.
It's very, do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
very odd. Okay. So I would invite you now for a moment, you're still in plenary, just take a piece of paper or write on your computer and take a moment for yourselves to just brainstorm and reflect, to think about some of the advantages you see in developing an impact hypothesis for your project. Share if you maybe have challenges with impact hypotheses, if you already have experience with them, and share one point of learning regarding impact hypotheses that you acquired during this module. Just take a few moments, a few minutes, maybe between 5 to 10 minutes, and then Cesar will divide you into groups to invite you to exchange about this. So let's take a moment for you to think about these things. I will equally post them here in the chat, the 3 aspects, and I will leave them here on the screen. Just take a moment and maybe raise your hand on Zoom or write in the chat maybe when you're done and you're ready to go into the groups. Are you done with your own reflections already? I invited, for those of you who came late from the break, I invited you to reflect on your own based on the things that you see here on the screen, to reflect on some of the advantages of developing an impact hypothesis you see, some challenges maybe you have already faced, and to think about one learning. Would you be ready to be split into 3 groups to exchange on this with your fellow colleagues? I see Lembris is ready. That's great. Who else is ready? Can you please just write in the chat if you still need some time or if you're ready to go? Hello, are you there? Please just write in the chat if you still need some more thinking time for yourselves or if you're done and we can split you into groups. Thank you, Lindo. I would suggest we start with the groups. And you would be invited to just exchange about these aspects with your colleagues and see what the others have as experiences. Exchange around the advantages, the challenges, and your learning based on what you learned in this module. You have these points already written also in your chat. Are there questions before we break?
Hello, Antonia.
Yes, Bobo.
Yes, can I share the advantages and challenges of our projects? Can I share? Yeah.
We will break you into groups in a moment and you can share then. And Victor, no problem that you just need some more thinking time. You can also take a moment still to reflect in your group. I would suggest we break into the groups. Cesar, would you be ready to split the groups up? You will have about 20 minutes for that. And if you need help, click on the Ask for Help button and I can jump around the rooms. It's really meant as an exchange. There is no right or wrong. We are just interested in you to reflect on your own experiences, see maybe what you learned in this module based on impact hypotheses and what the others have to contribute. And then we will come back here to plenary in 20 minutes. And there,
Okay.
Bobo, you can share your reflections.
Rooms are ready. I will open now. You will all be moved automatically to your breakout room group.
I see some smiling faces, which is really nice. I hope you had a good exchange. I would just like to hear from one person of each group briefly how was your exchange? Just a quick popcorn feedback, as we call it. Can I maybe invite group number 1? Who was or let's just take I don't know if you know in which groups you were. Cesar, I don't know if you can still see the groups. Could you just say again who was in group number 1?
In group number 1, we had Africanus, Bakhtiyor, and Mai Tintar.
So how was the exchange in your group?
Hello?
Hi, Africanos, we hear you.
Good, yeah, thank you. Actually, we had a very good discussion on our group number 1, but even though we had a problem in connection, So most of the time, actually, the calls dropped and we were not in conversation, but at least we managed to discuss a few things. On the advantage, we all agreed that impact hypothesis is very helpful because it really helps to for the project implementers to really know where they want to be or what they want to achieve at the end of the day. So to provide guidance on how the intervention is aimed at bringing what kind of change to the beneficiaries. But second, we see that impact hypothesis, it's like a tool of analysis, reflection, and learning, because you might be implementing a project, but after whatever you're doing, it needs to reflect on what you want to achieve at the end of the day, but also to provide a learning sphere, because on implementing it, you learn new things and you adapt it and you revise your plan so as to make sure that whatever you are doing, it will focus on attaining that set objective or changing that particular situation. But on the challenges or disadvantages, we see that basically it deals on assumption. So if the assumption is not correct or is not well analyzed, you might end up maybe implementing a project but not and getting the end result you wanted. So we came to realize that we need to be very careful while developing those theories or assumptions which led you in the informing this impact hypothesis. But the disadvantage, on the disadvantage side, we think that because having this impact hypothesis, it means you have already selected some theories or assumptions which will guide you on the implementation. So we think that maybe it might be challenging or sometimes difficult in case you have during the implementation you came to realize that you need to change, to revise some things. It might not be easier because it might take some time, because you will need also to go back to the origin of the ideation on revising things so that it can be more appropriate to the situation you want. So that's where we see that it might be challenging. But all in all, we all agreed that the impact hypothesis is a great tool for reflection and learning, as well as analyzing the situation. Great. And provide guidance.
Thank you very much for sharing this this insight from your group. Very interesting. So the importance of really thinking about the assumptions and getting them right from the beginning, and like the challenge of revising your impact hypothesis. But the important thing really is you can look at the impact hypothesis throughout the project and see whether it needs adapting. But yes, indeed, it is a challenge. Thanks very much for that. Who was in group 2? Cesar, could you just let me know who was in group 2?
Sure. It was Doreen from Tanzania, with Lembris from Tanzania as well, Lindo from Vietnam, and Mohan from Nepal.
Great. Can you share maybe just briefly from your group, one person?
Limers. Can you share? Limers?
Thank you. With our group, we had more reflection of the task given, and we had the spare time to go through back again and discuss some differences and similarities between theory of change, log frame, and impact hypothesis. Because it looks like there is confusion among us, and there are some sort of confusion within the project documents we have. Because in some contexts like safe food, there is no clear information about the impact hypothesis, but when you go into the title of the theory of change, the content is the impact hypothesis, because it's very, very specific to the project. So, this discussion had led us to more understanding and reflection of the difference between the three. But I think the way forward is to have some sort of more discussions and examples so that when you see the document, when you read it, you say this is impact without that heading. You can say this is impact hypothesis. And when you read it, you can say this is the theory of change. Whether it's a narrative or whether it's a table, it's important to differentiate based on the content. And the team appreciated the discussion because some of us were not able to differentiate the two. So briefly, that is what we discussed, and each of us was able to give some examples from his or her project. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for sharing, Lembers. And yes, indeed, I understand that those terms and concepts are used interchangeably in the development context and in the nonprofit sector. Some refer to a theory of change, some refer to an impact hypothesis. I think across Helvetas, impact hypotheses have been very common in the past predominantly, but maybe there is a change towards having more to look at the theory of change level, to really go towards systemic change more broadly, and they have a lot of similarities. So it's not so easy to distinguish them necessarily, but they're definitely not exactly the same. Thank you for sharing that. And group number 3, please. I think Bobo and Siep and Victor was there, but Victor had connection issues in between.
Hello. Because the computer is shut down immediately.
No problem.
Account. So in our group, we found out that none of us have any experience in developing impact hypothesis. So we don't have any advantages. But we, in considering some of the examples in the materials, we found that it's quite difficult to find to create the logic sequence, and we may have some problem with the projects that involves so many stakeholders, and maybe we miss some key ones. For example, in the case of Helvetas Vietnam strategy 2013-2017, we see that the private sector is missed. So I think that it's very important to that project, to that strategy, but they missed it. And we have a learning that creating a good theory of change may help us develop a good impact hypothesis. Yeah, so that's all from our group.
Thank you very much for sharing. Very insightful. I just see one more comment in the chat. You have a table of a theory of change. If the table is not the log frame, and if it works for like what I showed you at the beginning, Lebris, I think you weren't there yet. There is a causal way of showing a theory of change with like inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact from left to right. If you have something like that in a table, that also perfectly works if you have a pathway diagram like that. I will just invite you to look at the beginning maybe of the recording once I share it. As long as that table of your theory of change is not your log frame, I think if it works for you, I think that's fine. We are coming now to the end of the session, and I would like to ask you to answer 3 specific questions. I will start a poll here that you should see on your screen, because I would be interested to know how useful you found this virtual classroom in general. I see 4 of the 10 of you have already answered. I will just give you all the possibility to do so before I share the results. You don't see them on your screen yet. 8 of you have answered. 9. Can we get the 10th person maybe still? Okay, let me just show you. Most of you found it very useful, and the others found it useful. That is great, great to hear. Thank you very much for that impression. And as a second question, I would like to know whether this classroom helped you to deepen the knowledge of the module. Do you say not at all, not very much, yes, maybe a little, or yes, very much? Cesar, could I just ask you to take screenshots of these polls at the end, please?
Sure.
Thank you. So here we have a square between 5 of you found that, yes, the virtual classroom helped to deepen your knowledge a little bit, and 5 found so very much. And lastly, actually, I have 2 more questions, but one more is a poll. And whether this classroom has had an added value for you to stimulate exchange with your peers, with your colleagues. And here again, from not at all to yes, very much. Wonderful, all of you answered. Again, equally distributed between yes, a little and yes, very much. Glad to hear that. And I would invite you, if you have any other feedback that for things that you wish us to do differently in the future, to include something, anything, please write it in the chat if you have something else that you wish to change, or that you wish to share with us, something that's that you think is really good, something that should change. Please just write it in the chat until we finish this class. And before we do so, I just wanted to give you an overview of the next module. As for this one, as for module number 1, if you didn't yet have a chance to do the group work on the situational analysis, I would still invite you to please still do that, because really this exchange among peers is one core element of this course, and it's really useful. And the assignment with the log frame is due on Friday. Please submit it then. If you have any issues sticking to that deadline, please send me an email, and be aware again that for receiving a certificate at the end, 4 out of 5 virtual classrooms need to be attended, and 4 out of the 5 assignments need to be completed, including at the end also a final test. Without that, we won't be able to issue a certificate for you. In module number 2, which I will open as of next week, Monday, this again will be work that you have for 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to go through the materials and to prepare yourselves. And the content is about a smart and meaningful M&E system. And here we had the questions today already regarding like challenges with indicator definition. So here we will really look at how do we define specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound smart indicators. How do you measure these? How do you set a baseline? How do you set your targets? What to include in your M&E plan? How to go about data collection, specifically data analysis, and how you present that data. And that has an aspect also including digital monitoring. And we had the interest today from Molly regarding qualitative data analysis. Those points will be touched upon in the next module. There again, as with every module, is an assignment. The deadline for that assignment is on the 14th of May, ahead of the virtual classroom that takes place on the 20th of May. And my colleague Kai Schrader, who is also working in my team and who is a senior advisor on evaluation and learning, he will be co-facilitating the next virtual classrooms, the next 2, with me. And I'm just reading through the chat in terms of what more feedback there is. It would be good to have a good example of a project document and you review it as you go, okay? And to have a case for analysis together. Yes, there will definitely be the possibility to analyze cases together. So there will be more possibilities on that. And in module 2, if you have the impression it would be good to exchange with another colleague on something specific, there's always the possibility to exchange with the entire group on Moodle. There is a forum for each module. So if you have a specific question or a confusion there during the module, really feel free to post your comments there, your questions, and your colleagues will be able to have a look at that and maybe give their impressions. And we also suggest if you have the time to exchange and further collaborate with another participant. For those of you who are still completing the group work, that may already be it, but get in touch with each other and you have several means to do that via Moodle as well. I just see one more question, 2 more points in the chat. Let me just have a look at that. Regarding the assignments, until today, I didn't see that anything was completed on Moodle. You should be able to save it. You need to upload it and save it, and if it doesn't appear there, then something went wrong. If you want to be sure, you can also send me an email with your log frame, and then I can also add it on Moodle if you have an issue with that. And Victor asked whether it's possible to create specific groups on Moodle. Yes, that is possible. We will also have more group work. Otherwise, you can also, if you want to still exchange with the group that you already were in touch with, feel free to just reach out to them again and work with them as you go. I hope that clarified your question. And we have our next virtual classroom on the 20th of May. I will again be in touch with you via the announcements regarding preparation. And I'm hoping that I will be able to see as many of you again as you were today. It was really nice to have so many of you here. And thank you very much, Cesar, for your support on the technical front. Feel free to all open your cameras just one more time and your mics to say bye. And again, if you have any questions or comments, concerns, anything, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the week.
Okay,
really
thank you very
really
much.
nice to see you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.